I am addressing the residue of slavery tonight. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a very, very critical issue. Great. Okay, so you can focus me in here. We've spent a lot of time talking about the past and what perhaps happened to us in slavery, etc., but we really, from a scientific perspective, have not really addressed the issues. And so over the years, I've really been concerned about what happened to us 200 to 250 years ago, and really studying and looking at the profound effect of how that is actually panning out now. There's been some articles in Caucasian published magazines, primarily for Caucasians, where they recognize that health or illness, states of consciousness, etc., when people of this nature are placed in a leadership position, can have ramifications on generations for hundreds of years. So in that case, understanding, for example, that this country is still suffering from the effects of World War II, all of the major leaders who were calling the shots at that time had profound physical ailments, whether there was actually drug addiction, neurologic diseases, cardiovascular diseases, psychoses. All the four major leaders were found to be profoundly ill, and they were actually calling the shots, and millions of lives were lost because of that. And the end result is still playing out to this day. So if we can account for that fact happening, that four major people in four major countries could affect the world for over 50 years later, then obviously of people being under duress conditions for over 100 years, how long is that going to play out? And the answer can be infinitesimal if the remnants of that event do not come into the awareness of what has happened to them and take control over themselves personally to investigate how much of a residue they have because of that, and then transform it. So, first of all, let's examine slavery and actually what that means. So, Webster's Collegian Dictionary states that slavery is an involuntary subjection to another or others, involuntary bondage and servitude, and complete ownership and control by a master. It also had a lot of other sub-definitions of, hard work, potential abuse, a lot of other things, but that's the general definition. The question here, and this is very important, that I have not heard us want to really face and really take a look at and discuss. How and why did such a large population of humans become slaves, and what was the common factor which supported the ability of slavery to become a reality for millions of Africans? Okay, usually when you hear the story, it just is like, okay, we were slaves, and boom, we had to do 100 years, as though there was not a choice. There was a choice. And I have never heard any collective group of African Americans address why a choice wasn't made as opposed to why the choice was made that we would do slavery as opposed to not to do slavery. Because you do have a choice. So, the common psychological states that promote captivity, because there are states that promote captivity, are a threat to one's sense of survival or a desire to survive. Okay. Two survival techniques the brain uses. Now, it's very important here because we're going to talk about different aspects of the body. Your physical body, your mental body, your emotional body. And I'm going to comment just slightly on the spirit. But these three bodies are critical in beginning to understand how they interface and how they interact in you making the decisions on your everyday life. Most of us do not understand that we make decisions from a source, but we really are not clear about what body is dictating. Is it the physical body that's dictating? Is it the emotional body that's dictating? Is it the mind that is dictating why you are doing and living and thinking the way you're thinking? Now you have to understand that this is the greatest issue as to why we have not taken our proper position in the world at this point, and also have not reached our sovereignty, as we have observed and often complain about the fact that we see other races come over here. They don't speak the language, or they have difficulty speaking the language. We've noticed that within 5 years, they're able to basically be totally solvent, self-employed, etc., and on their way. Now, you've been here for almost 200 years, and you're still struggling with that. So what I have seen is that we focus and direct a lot of aggression to them, a lot of hostile attitudes, as though they've come and taken something away from us. That is not true. And so the key here is that you have to ask yourself, how can a person come to a country that was foreign to them, just like it was foreign to you when you were brought over here, even though it was under duress, and in 5 years' time be able to basically have you buy from them? See, it's very important now that you have to really be a scientist now and start figuring this out. Emotions are over. We've lost a lot of lives. We've wasted a lot of time moving into emotions and not dealing with logic and data here. Okay? So, there are two major techniques that your brain, the brain is a part of the physical body. It is not your mind. It is not your emotional body. It is not your spiritual body. It is part of the physical body. But it is a vast reservoir of information that, when activated, if the mind or the emotional body or the spirit does not interfere, will tell your body what to do. That is why you're able to drive home and not think about how to drive home. That is why you can read a book and don't have to make sure that your lungs are working and your heart is beating, because the brain is telling the body what to do. So the brain understands that the body is supposed to live indefinitely. And so if the mind hasn't figured that out, if the emotions are confused and haven't figured that out, the brain will take action and make the body do things so that it is not sacrificed. Do you understand? So therefore, as I said here, the brain will actually make decisions, and two major influences here that will totally shut down the mental body is the technique known as imprinting, which is the capacity to permanently alter the behavior of an individual by introducing a strong stimuli at a specific time over a known period of time, and the original stimuli is never introduced again. Okay? Now, there have been many scientists. This art of altering animal behavior by introducing stimuli at specific times for specific durations is known as ethology, E-T-H-O-L-O-G-Y. It's a whole science. And they have learned how to be able to take any animal and they can totally change their mating patterns, their identification patterns, etc. Many times to the demise of the animal. But they can do that. They also do these things to human beings. Now, there's a second process that the mind is totally shut down and the brain surrenders to, that's known as conditioning. Conditioning is a process of changing behavior by rewarding or punishing a subject each time an action is performed. So we talk about that when they've done this with the Skinner mazes with rats. You can teach roaches. You know, in my lab, we had roaches. They knew who you were, when you came in, etc. You know, roaches are very intelligent, and they can be trained. No, I'm serious. Okay? So, I'm telling you that you can use these techniques, and the natural brain, the computerized mechanism of the body, will actually dictate your behavior. Now, this is very important to understand, that consciousness and energy create your reality. This is what my teacher has taught me, and truly in everything that I see, it is true. Consciousness and energy create your reality. So that means then that if it's not your consciousness and your energy that's creating, then it's somebody else's creating your reality, and it's always your choice. Whatever you persistently think or believe will become your reality. Whatever you persistently think and believe will become your reality. All fears and insecurities are real to the Creator, and the tissues of the body will manifest them for you in your lifetime. Now this is very profound, because when you look at African Americans, when you look at Africans in Africa, one of the most distinct out front emotions that they have is fear. And anytime, I don't care what it is, you focus on an image or an event which fear makes you focus and become aware of it all the time, you must have the event. So therefore, there's an old cliche that says the only thing that you ever want to fear is fear. That you want to do everything you can possibly do, never to ever be afraid of anything. And that is one of our greatest drawbacks. So you have to understand, this was the time that we were to be great leaders, sovereign people on the planet, but because we have not understood psychologically, emotionally, and mentally what happened to us, we basically cannot move into that position. We keep walking around, running around, being rolled around, whatever the condition is, limping around in the same circle. And it has been for over 100 years, literally in the wilderness of your own mind and beingness, because you have not taken the time to embrace and understand how you were created and the effects of what happened to you, how it has influenced your thinking, so that you do not walk outside of the circle. All thoughts within the mind are chemicals in the tissues of the body. So you have to understand that all your thoughts are chemicals in your bloodstream. All of your thoughts. These are not just kind of poofy woo-woo things. When you think a thought, that brain is responsible for translating that into a chemical and actually flooding your bloodstream and your nerves with that chemistry, so that the cells of your body know what you are thinking. So when we, in our own minds, play games about conjuring up feelings and thoughts and thinking that just because it appears as though we're not acting on them, or because we haven't spoken on them, that the cells of your body don't know it. Thinking thoughts and then trying to neutralize what you have thought by not acting on it is extremely toxic to the cells of the body. Very toxic. This is one subtle reason why we have diseases that appear as though they have no solution. One of the most common ones is hypertension. Hypertension is clearly known that individuals who have this have long-standing, unresolved emotional problems. And so how can a pill resolve an emotional problem? The only thing it can do is shut down part of the brain so that you have less chemistry made from those emotions that you conjured up that you have not addressed. So therefore you wonder why you still have the stroke, why you basically now are sick and poisoned from the medication, but it was always a Band-Aid from the beginning, because the issue originated from a state of consciousness. So, now pay attention to this. A sensation, or sensations in the body, are created by the cells of your body. It is the cell's method of relaying to the brain that it has received and responded to your thoughts. So when you have a thought and then you have a sensation in your body, it's just the cells saying, okay, we got it. That's all it is. Now you have to understand then that pain, for example, is a perception of a sensation as defined by your mind, nothing more. The body doesn't know pain. The body doesn't know pain. We've seen too many times where people have had their legs cut off, had their head half off, and a whole bunch of other stuff, and you have to tell them, hey, did you know that your leg is hanging off? Or did you know that your head is hanging open? When they come into the emergency room, they don't even know that. because their attention was focused on other things. Is my child all right? What happened to my husband? If these are auto accidents or there's some major catastrophe. Do you understand me? So therefore, pain is something that you decide that you have. This is not what the body decides. This is your decision to decide that a sensation that you're having is painful. Because a sensation can be whatever it is that you ever want to call it. It doesn't have to be pain. Now that may be a big one for you to swallow, because most of you are conditioned to not be able to separate mind from body, from emotions, and recognize that you're choosing all the time which one you want to allow to be real. Fear is the acceptance by the mind that it has exhausted its resources to cope with an experience. A simple and more explicit definition of fear is ignorance. Because when you have information, you are not in fear. Because the mind has alternatives. So that if plan A doesn't work, we can create a plan B, we can create a plan C, a plan C1, 2, 3, a plan D1, 2, 3, etc. So we don't have time to basically feel threatened, because we have all of this data that we can go and create a different methodology. So when people are in fear, they are admitting that they basically do not have information to be able to create a new reality that they can take action on. So fear is an admission of ignorance. And that's fine, because when you're honest and if the first thing you recognize that you're in a state of fear, then the first thing I am strongly suggesting that you do from this point on is to get information fast. And if you notice, here we are in the information age. We have space stations in outer space. We have colonies literally on the moon, colonies on Mars, and when a person says that they're having issues around figuring out how they're going to survive, etc., there's no way that they're going to really take a serious part in. Why? Because we don't have information. So here we are with all these things going on around us, but yet and still we do not have a decent, completely computerized library in our communities. The one bookstore here that's been here indefinitely is about to close down. And to me, that is just incomprehensible. With all the science, mathematics books, astronomy books, etc., that the bookstore needs to have for us so we can go right to the corner and buy them, I can't imagine that a bookstore would not be one of the first preferences of something that we want to have in our community. So you have to look at yourself and ask, why isn't going to the bookstore and building your library one of your main goals every month? And we're not talking about romance novels, okay, because they do not give you any data on how to deal with this. We're talking about hardcore data that you can make decisions with, whether it be in finance, home economics, cooking, whatever. But your books shelf should be loaded, because if it is, and you're reading them, then that means that you have a heavy mind with lots of information, and one of the toxic substances that you will not be conjuring up in your blood will be no fear. Emotions are created by mentally connecting a thought to a sensation. Like I told you before, the body only knows sensations. If you don't label the sensation, then it does not become an emotion. It's just a sensation, and it will pass through. There will be no further chemistry made. But every time you decide that this sensation, I'm going to call it this, then you immediately then cause the brain to flood your body with chemistry. And the more you continuously create this emotion, the more chemistry of that emotion you have in your tissues, until your tissues begin to believe that this is part of its beingness, that it's supposed to have this chemistry. Now, as I said down here, that as the chemicals, emotions wane, the cells will go into a period of chemical withdrawal. You will actually begin to withdraw from your own. So as the chemicals of emotion wane, the cells will go into a period of chemical withdrawal. This will stimulate the brain to produce more molecules of emotion, and the cells will carry out the corresponding behavior to concentrate the chemicals in the tissues. This is known as emotionalism, which creates drama. No, I'm serious. You have to understand that drama is a biological created activity because the chemistry of that emotion is dwindling in that person's body. And so therefore, to keep that chemistry at the level that it's used to, it will stimulate the person to create drama. So you have to understand this is a self-imposed chemical addiction to one's own emotions. And if that means that they are sabotaging things to solve this chemical imbalance in the body, they will do that. If it means that they have to create disharmony or create havoc, etc., it will happen over and over and over again. So these people don't need enablers that continuously support them through their high drama. They need to actually be treated and put into withdrawal and consult about how to be able to separate their sensations from a thought so they do not continuously create this chemistry. So you have to understand this is a serious problem, because what I have observed about us as African Americans is that we have difficulty staying focused and participatory in an event because we allow our emotions, and now we've created these emotions because we have judged someone else's speech or someone else's behavior to allow us to abandon the goal or the project over and over and over again. So I used to find it very interesting because Caucasians will make it very clear to each other, I really do not like you. However, if they are very clear that they need that person's skill or talent, that is inconsequential, and I will meet you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock so we can get busy on this project. And at 5 o'clock, don't speak to me again. So I've heard us rationalize that, oh, that's hypocritical and just a whole bunch of other stuff, and how can they do that, and they shouldn't speak, and look at what they did. A whole bunch of chemical poisons and toxins that you have created in your mind. Because when the mind understands that we need certain skills and talents to be able to get a project done, we're not interested in how they look, what they say, what they may be doing, etc. We're interested, can they execute this particular activity to the extent that I'm going to get one step closer to the goal. And if the mind understands that, a healthy mind will ignore the rest of the activities and stay focused on the goal. This is critical. I mean, I have seen us talk about we're not speaking and whatever else, etc., and nothing gets done. Nothing. Over and over and over again. Because we are emotional addicts. We are not in control at all of our bodies. It is our emotions that are driving us. And so therefore we have abandoned the project. Years go by, the same foolishness and nonsense, and we wonder why, what happened. It's somebody else that didn't do whatever they're supposed to do. No, it was you who would not control your mind and stay focused. So a key here, African Americans can employ to destroy the residual, keys that African Americans can employ to destroy the residuals of slavery. 1, to take an accurate and honest inventory of your frequent thoughts. Do they support and promote your desires or not? So you have to recognize that if you're walking down the street humming Baby Faces or Beyonce's tune, and you know that you are supposed to have your bills met and that you have other goals you want to achieve, then you have to ask yourself, why am I humming this? Instead of actually focusing on and thinking about how and what I'm going to do right now that's going to expedite me meeting that goal. Do you understand that? You have to ask yourself, why are you doing that? Because that is a misuse of your attention. It is a misuse of your mind, and that means that if you are not holding the vision of that goal and working toward it, then you are obviously working towards something else. And so when you get something else and then you get upset because you haven't met the goal, whose fault is it? It's yours, because your mind didn't stay centered and focused on what you said you wanted to achieve. So we do not understand the dangers of the things that we take for granted and let into our environments and see the long-term consequences of that. So I say to you that have parents, that have children, no. They should never be allowed to basically have radio and music and TV going when they are supposed to be studying. Because this is the time that they need to learn how to be able to be so focused and so centered that whatever's on that page, they literally become it. Because when you can hold an image to that extent that it literally becomes your life, it cannot not manifest in your life. That is the promise. That's just how, when something is that vivid, it will manifest, and it will manifest very fast. So be concerned when you can't see a way to a goal or a solution as to how you're going to get there. Never participate in an experience which does not support your goals or desires. Do the research and get the information about the activity if you're not sure about the potentials it offers. I have heard that excuse that, oh, I, invested in this, or we did that and the other, and, I lost this. Well, where was the data? Where was the research? Okay, what was the potential that this could actually happen? Well, if you didn't do any of that, so that when you focused your energy and put your resources where your focus was, that the chances of it not panning out like you saw it, then you have to eat that pill. It's no one else's fault but yours. So we have to basically be honest with ourselves. Where is our data research banks? Where are they? I don't know of any that you pay to support and that you hire researchers and statisticians to keep data on everything so you can make accurate decisions at the moment. So you can go to your website, etc., and download information relative to you. I'm sure most of you do not have memberships to Rand McNally, any of these databases. So therefore, what are you making decisions on? What kind of information and data are you using? You have to ask yourself that question, because if you don't know, then how can you expect for it to work? How can you expect that you don't have all kinds of potentials to enter into this that are definitely going to give you a run for the money as to whether you're going to deal with fear or not? See, these are the residues of slavery. One of the biggest issues that happened to us, that we were imprinted not to think. We were imprinted not to give our input and to have an opinion. You were imprinted to produce and never own. Do you understand that? And your community looks the exact same way as a slave quarters does right now. The paper's flying everywhere, the shingles are crooked, no plants, no flowers, etc. Why? And you say you own it. But you don't act like an owner. Because when you drive out to Plano, etc., I don't care how little the thing is. They got flowers up the kazoo, trees everywhere, everything is painted and fresh. So you have to understand that when you don't act like an owner, that you don't see your personality and your gifts and talents come out, trademark come out in everything you touch, you're not owning it. That is still the mind of a slave. When you do not have resources and data banks that you can actually give your opinion about what you're doing and why you're doing it, that is the mind of a slave. Do you understand that? I want to bring this to you. So it's like, we don't, I personally am tired of the politicians and all these people talking a whole bunch of stuff. It's time now for each and every one of you to empower yourselves and get the information. Because when that happens, you'll obviously have different representation. Because you'll know them inside and out, and you'll be able to reconcile who can do what for you. We don't have to, have a lot of gab and parties to get voted. They'll be able to throw down, and that's it. And we haven't had that yet, but it's your responsibility to create that for yourselves by understanding truly and honestly who you're dealing with and what are the implications that information is going to mean as far as the power that you're getting ready to give them. Never argue in behalf of your weaknesses. I don't see any other races, and I've been with all races, studied with them. They don't argue about the fact that they have slanted eyes, so therefore they can't own their company. They don't talk about the fact that they basically have no buttocks, that they don't have no lips, that their skin is too white, that they can't run the world. I never hear them say that. I can't run the world because my skin is too white and because I basically don't have much testosterone. I don't hear that. They don't jump and say that. They don't say that, this is a black man's world because I basically have no muscle mass. I never hear them say that. So when I see Mick Jagger, whose hips are probably about 9 inches wide, he decided he was going to be the king of rock, and if his money could take him where he wanted to go, he could buy anything. Well, he does that. And he's a teeny-weeny little person, and he has no issues with that. He doesn't apologize about it. He basically does not argue in behalf of his weaknesses. He knows better than we do how he can get sunburned and how he has to have all his little clothes taken up. But that does not allow him not to be able to perform and have what he envisions. And I have heard so many times, I've heard black men actually say that this is a white man's world. I mean, that's incredible to me, because that means, well, what does it mean for you, and what are you doing in it then? I mean, that's concern. I'm concerned about that. So if you're too dark and, whatever the issue is, your buttocks is too big, I mean, all of that is just clear, absolute nonsense. And, let's not even deal with my mama didn't. And, I didn't have a dad. All of that is foolishness. It is foolishness. I was clear about that when I met a turtle in the Pacific Ocean, a couple of them, and they were 250 years old. And when I looked at them and they looked at me, and I was like, now this is incredible. Your mother dropped you at nighttime in the sand. You never knew your daddy. They hatched out of those eggs, and they immediately jumped into the huge ocean. So you have to ask yourself, why can you not swim? Now, if you're talking about you're afraid of water, then you know that you need to sign up tomorrow and get you some swimming lessons. Because here's a turtle whose little head is like this, that runs and jumps in the ocean at nighttime and navigates this ocean in areas we never know, and they are 250 years older looking at you. Now, what does that say about you? See, Mother Nature is right here confronting us with all our issues, asking us to grow up, to be the gods that we were created to be, and take our proper place. So when you have something that lives in the ocean, never needs a house, don't have to have a car, none of this foolishness that can live for 250 years, then you have to ask yourself, what are you talking about? That because you work 50 years, you have the right to have arthritis, diabetes, and cataracts and blindness. It's all madness and nonsense. It is in your mind. There have already been scientists that have proven that we have tissue that can live indefinitely. Our gift is to heal spontaneously, to live as long as we desire, without disease, and you have to ask yourself, why are you not actualizing your natural innate gifts? Now, everybody knows that the world is brown, which means that obviously there's more positions of leadership, more positions to have cash for the brown people, and now why don't they have it? Because if you're sitting here, that means that you have the genetic, mental capacity to have it. But if you have not looked at yourself and identified how you are holding on to the residual and the residue of slavery, then you are just, as they really say, a useless eater. Because everything naturally has been laid out for you, so you have to ask yourself, what is my problem? It's not anyone or anything outside of you. It is still in your mind as to how you really see and think about yourself. And the great gift is that at the drop of an eyelash, you can change that anytime. It does not take a long time, and it's going to be so hard, and, ooh, honey, I don't know how I'm going to do that. None of that foolishness, because all of those are commands too. So if you wanted to take it a long time, well then saying that means that your body is going to be real resistant. Telling your body that it's going to be very hard for you to change, then your body's going to be real resistant. Because whatever you tell your body with intent, your body will carry out for you. Do all you can first, and then the money will come. Well, why don't you have your own business? I don't have no money. That's the first thing you say. So you sit down and do absolutely nothing, or you stay on the job that you hate, and then you wonder why your knees ache, your wrists are swollen up, etc., when you know that you hate going there from the beginning. You know what you've always wanted to be, so why not be that? Money is never the excuse for you not being what you want to be. Because if you would do everything that you need to do first, the money will come. It has no choice, because everything that you've done is a magnet that will make it come. So, no, as long as you talk about squeezing yourself into your life on the weekends, you can always look for a lot of problems. And that's how much many of us think about ourselves. Well, I had to go to this job. Okay, that's what you were taught in slavery. That's the residue of slavery. Okay, and then on the weekends you can sneak off to church maybe. Okay, and then you have to be back on the plantation. And many of you are still living this way. You can laugh, but you have to really look at yourself. You're still living this way. And if you decide that, well, I'm going to take 3 days off, I'm going to go to the library, I'm going to really find out about how I can open up my own dress shop, I'm going to go look for a place, whatever else, etc., most of you all would have a heart attack. You would be so intimidated, so afraid to go back 3 days later, when you know you don't even want to be there in the first hour. See, this is the contradiction, and this is the residue of slavery. Because if you just turn on that biography channel, all these people tell you the same thing over and over again. They just did what they needed to do because they believed in themselves. And they didn't care whether somebody else told them no. They went to somebody else. So we don't understand that when one person tells you no, that has nothing to do about you achieving your goal. That's just them saying they can't help you. But you got what? 5,999,999,900 other people that will say yes. So how many times have we said, well, they said no, it couldn't be done, and then we go home and sit down forever. Them saying no does not mean you cannot have what you want. It just means that they are not the ones that support you. And so you say thank you and you move on, because you got all these other millions that will. The body always represents your mind. If it is misshapen, toxic, diseased, or impaired, so are your thoughts. Okay, and we have to face that, and we have to deal with it. Okay, and we can't continue to rationalize that, oh, I'm healthy, I just have a little high blood pressure, and a little diabetes, and, some cataracts, and whatever else, etc., and you don't think that that's a state of consciousness? It very much is. So, these, again, are the residue, seeing the obvious and being in denial. Because that is the brain's way of coping with an issue that the mind knows it has no information on how to change. The mind will do anything with information. Our biggest problem is that we are not information gatherers and users. That's the only issue we have. We don't get the information and use it. The strongest people on the planet, the most beautiful people on the planet, and the dumbest. Void of information. That's what dumb means. It doesn't mean retarded. It means void of information. The body will endure an incredible amount of trauma and neglect to survive. The mind will also corrupt itself to accommodate the body's desires. Okay, this is why the addicts kill their mama. steal the TV set from the sister, sell the baby, because of this corruption. Because when a person gets to the point where that chemistry is totally controlling the body, when that chemistry is not present, they literally feel as though they're dying. And so they go into survival mode, where relationships and anything else have no value. It's about me living. That's how they see that. And that's why we have to really understand what addiction is and how it works in the body, so that we can help our relatives and our neighbors deal with that. Because we are plagued with addicts throughout our communities and in our environment. And so hollering and cursing at them and locking everything down is not the answer. It's not the answer. You have people that basically have an emotional body that's huge and expanded, and tissues that are inundated tremendously with chemicals. So they need support and information, understanding that those emotions that they created are totally illusionary. The chemistry that they create in their bloodstream, they have to be cleansed of that. The tissues have to be totally purged. There's no detox program in your community that forces these addicts to clean up. So it's the most ridiculous thing to sit there with somebody who is totally inundated with molecules of emotion, smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee with 5 candy bars stuffed in their mouth, and you're telling them not to go out and get some crack or heroin. Just by the fact that they are eating cigarettes, eating candy bars, and living off soft drinks tells you how vast their addiction is. Because all of those are further substances of addiction. A treatment center should have no substance of addiction, no sugar, no caffeine, no nicotine at all. So how are you going to clean up somebody's addiction when you're taking one substance and substituting it for another? Now, is that logical to a thinking mind? Of course not. And we don't have to have a PhD in rocket scientist to figure this out. But yet and still, we see our people go up into these institutions and will sometimes drive them up there. And you know they're not going to get any help. What is this? So it's not an arduous process to detoxify people, to clean them up. But the information, what is the information on how to do this? What are you really looking at? Because the experiences they have are really not the issue. Again, none of them had to be the turtle with no mama or daddy and jump in the ocean and have to navigate that for 250 years. So if it's because the mama left you or the daddy beat you or even incest, it is what it is, but how you value it and judge it is what will make you or break you. Do you understand that? And we have examples of that, where people can do all kinds of things, but they don't have a value on it. What has happened to me, we don't have a value on it. It's just a fact, it happened, but this is where I am, and they move on. They have no chemistry in the muscles and in the tissues that inhibit them from having new experiences because they didn't judge the past, and they don't linger in it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Any experience you have is the opportunity for you to become wise and to actually see your divinity in it. That's what these experiences are about. And if you give them any other precedence in your life, you're going to make yourself an addict, and you're going to basically totally sabotage the quality of your life. And so it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how famous you are, etc. If you do not know how to work your mind, to use your mind, to use your willpower, to incorporate that under a spirit, you are going to jam yourself. We have examples of that. Whitney Houston is an awesome example of that. So in most people's eyes, she had everything going for her, but we recognize that she didn't have much going for her because nobody and all that money and all that fame ever taught her how to use her brain and her mind, and so she jammed herself up. So we all think that, having these things are the answer. No, it's not. If you have a brain and a mind that is coordinated and works properly, you can have all of that and far more. And you can have it on your own terms when you want it. And it will not destroy you. So I was listening on the radio. They were interviewing some gentleman who was writing about Darryl Strawberry and how awesome he was, etc. And he was a thorough, inundated emotional addict. And all he could talk about was something that happened with his mother, I think, or he had a mother or father issue. And they said that, you know, his athletic skills were incredible. The Caucasian people were just dribbling at the mouth about if they just had 1 ounce of his skills and talents, what they could do with it. And he's off somewhere lost with some foolishness. And just totally sabotaged himself over the past. Just totally out of control, emotional body, mind just gone awry. And we sit there and we look at this and we just basically act like it has no meaning, no message for us, etc. That is the residue of slavery. Expecting master to take care of it. Master knows best. Master will take care of it. We just sit there and watch and just record it and gossip about it. Because a sovereign person takes care of themselves. Nobody knows their business. Nobody knows them better than they know themselves. So they don't ask anybody to take care of their business. They take care of it themselves. And if they don't know how, they get busy figuring it and finding it out. So the great people that we have, if we would become a sovereign person, first of all, in spirit and in mind, we could save these great people. We wouldn't have to worry about somebody else trying to figure out what's wrong with them, because we would know and treat them properly. But this is the residue of slavery that we're sitting here looking at. The single foolproof method available to the mind, which will always allow it to overrule the body's desires and emotions, is knowledge applied through the use of one's will or willpower. I don't care what it is that is bothering you. I don't care what the problem is in your body. When you get the information, or a person who's supporting you gets the information, and you submit to that 100%, you will get the change and the transformation. I have seen people who have broke their neck and were told that they shouldn't have even lived and definitely would never ever sit up again. Quadriplegics that are running marathons. They are running marathons. Because they hung on to one truth, is that if I was walking once, I can walk again. And nobody and no one is going to tell me that I can't. So you have to understand that after these type people with this kind of made-up mind proved medical science wrong, that we do not have any tissue in our body that cannot regenerate. There is no tissue in your body that cannot regenerate. So we used to always try to tell you that, oh, nerve tissue, if you injure your spinal column, that's too bad, oh, you'll never do this. Lie. Because the body will do what the mind tells it. That's the first law of having a body. So they willed it, and it was so. So they're walking marathons, and the doctors are like, well, this is exceptional, this is the miraculous, whatever else, etc. It is not. It is a natural talent and gift and capacity that we all have. Okay, so in summary, Africans in America have failed to take their place of leadership and sovereignty in the world due to subconscious, ever-present residues of active imprints and conditioning patterns of behavior from slavery. These imprint patterns influence our thoughts and behavior around money, survival, sex, and female-male relationships. The key to identifying these residual enslaving patterns is close and honest self-observation. We have to really start looking at ourselves and being honest about what we see and admitting to what we think and admitting to what we know we feel. And if you're afraid of just about everything, then you know that you need to ask if you can move into the library. You know you need to quit your job and you need to go in the library and ask if you can live. And you need to start reading everything you possibly can that relates to any fear you can imagine, so that when you come out of there, you can bust out like Superman and Superwoman, daring a fear to come across you, because you have information that you can deal with. Because again, fear is ignorance. the willingness to study and become knowledgeable about every aspect of our life and our environment. I've gone to people's environment, they've asked me to come and visit, and as we're driving, I say, well, what's in that building? Well, I don't know. Well, what are they doing over there? I don't know. Well, what is this building? Well, I don't know. Well, why is this well, I don't know. Well, I'm like, well, how long you been here? All my life. I'm like, wow, that's like really something. Okay? It's like you don't have any idea what is going on in these buildings in your own neighborhood, who they are, what's in them, who comes and goes, why. It's very, very dangerous. It is very dangerous. It is very dangerous. You would be surprised what's right up in your face in your own community that is waiting to destroy you. And you walk past it every day. Because that's masses. We don't ask no questions. We don't investigate. We don't know. Identifying and nullifying all emotions which support unproductive behavior. If you know that you get angry about something and start throwing things around and busting up stuff, you have the problem, and you've got to get control over that and check your behavior. It's not anything outside of you. This is all going on within. You must get yourself under control with these emotions. You're always in tears. You must get yourself together and get your emotions together. It's nothing outside of you. This is all in your mind. Yeah, it is. How you choose to see yourself or other people. Always apologizing. It's a problem in your head. Because either you need to pay attention and stop making, quote, what you think is a mistake, or either you need to admit that, yes, I did want to do these things, and I'm not apologizing for it. And you just deal with it. Have a goal in life and commit to pursuing and actualizing the goal. Never accept no until you reach the goal and the desire. I've had so many patients come to me and I ask them, well, you know, what is your goal in life? Oh, I really don't know yet. Wow, you've been living 45 years with no direction? And you wonder why your life is like it is? Whew. Gee, you've been dabbling in stuff that was never created for you, but if you don't have a focus, how are you going to get there? How are you going to avoid trash and garbage? Because you don't have a focus. Well, I wanted to be this. Oh, really? Well, what happened? Oh, I got married and had children, and it's just a whole litany of excuses. Because children go where the parents go. So that is no excuse. So why haven't you actualized your goals in your life? And the only reason is because you have not held the focus to do so, and you do not believe in yourself to do so. And it has nothing to do with age. So your intent is to go to college? Well, you live indefinitely, so what's the matter? You can go to college at 300 years old and graduate. What's the problem? There should be no excuse. Never, never argue in behalf of your weaknesses. We've talked about that. That is a no-no. Your personal goal should be that you expect to wake up one day and not have any. But if you have any, so what? There's no reason for you basically not to achieve. There's never an excuse. Clean up your mind, your body, your home, and your community. There is no reason that our community should not be a place where everybody else wants to squeeze in. They should be arguing and fighting to be able to buy property in our community and live with us, not running away to the other side of the world. So it's very clear, everybody wants to have brown skin. Everybody wants to basically have nappy hair. Everybody wants to have big lips, big butts, everything. And so you all have it and don't want it. Won't keep it clean, won't keep it neat, won't keep things fixed up, and then you wonder why people don't want to be around you. The other thing is that we don't understand the people that have everything and don't want it. So maybe we should just get what we can, but not get too close. And that's literally the attitude. So there's a little teeny town in Detroit known as Hamtramck. And it established itself because of the tax breaks they gave to Chrysler. And that little community has all little wood frame bungalows. Everybody's little patch of grass out front and in the back is so nice and neat and cut. They have little flower boxes on every house. And they are the only community in the city of Detroit where you can get everything you need. Everybody else in Detroit has to drive to the malls and to the suburbs. But in Hamtramck, on their one little main street, you can buy a diamond ring, you can buy a car. Do you hear me? They got car dealerships, everything. On the one little block just about. It's no more than a mile. And you can go there, get anything you want on that street because those people say, I'm not driving to get fresh bread. I'm not driving anywhere to buy a car. I'm not driving anywhere to buy clothes. None of that. So they can go right on this one strip and get everything. It's the only strip in Detroit where you can walk out of your house on your foot and buy everything and come back home on your foot. And these are, what are they? Polish. This is Polish. The only other city I've been in where I've seen that in the city has been in Atlanta, but that's in Buckhead. When I lived there, I could walk outside of my door and buy a Rolls Royce and walk back home and have them drive it back while I walk. But most places, you don't believe in having the things that are necessary and are pleasurable to you and in your life where you live. You have to drive way away from your home. No. That's what slaves do. That is the residue of slavery. Your immune system is your best friend. Observe your life and remember you created it. The life you created is not to stress you out, but to teach you about self-mastery. You are the master of your life. Never involve yourself in an activity or with people that will not get you to your goal. Okay? Now, I remember that people used to say that was being snobbish. Well, I think it's being intelligent. Okay? That, you know, why should I take my good time and energy and be with somebody that is not about what I'm doing and does not want to go where I'm going? Because that means if they're not going the direction I'm going, if I'm going to be with them, then I got to go in their direction. Well, then what happens to my goals in my life? Am I supposed to blame them all of a sudden because I didn't stay focused and stay on my path? No. Because I had a choice. So it's not smart. And finally, be honest with yourself and the world will be honest with you. So I want to thank you so much and I love you.
In 2017, the inspiration behind it was to use images and quotes that not only